British Columbians to save them money and make life more affordable is to completely eliminate MSP premiums. We'll be starting to do that at the end of this year, and then we will completely eliminate them. Thank you.
Thank you. Jordan Templeman, you have 1 minute.
So yeah, the problem with MSP premiums is that they're not equally charging people who make, let's say, $40,000 and those who make $400,000. It's a flat rate rather than a percentage. Now, when we look at MSP, I would support either eliminating it or changing it from a regressive tax to one that equally taxes everyone, and that's the problem. That's the main reason why people talk about getting rid of it. That's why other provinces don't have a system of MSP like BC does. So whether it be the Liberal government in power or the NDP government or the Greens, I would support a change of MSP that would make it a more fair system, something that doesn't just get rid of it completely without finding somewhere where we're getting the funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam Olson?
You can't eliminate healthcare costs. I was wondering about this answer from Mr. Roberts yesterday because I don't know why they're collecting MSP premiums if it's not going to something. The reality is that we have healthcare costs that need to be paid for. Right now, the BC Liberals have their special healthcare tax called the MSP, which they've doubled over the 16 years. Now they're having it, bringing it back to 2001. The BC Greens have been very clear on this. Andrew Weaver's been a leader on this in the legislature. He's been talking about this over the past 4 years, really brought this conversation to the forefront and worked with the NDP on this issue. The BC Greens will pay for healthcare through a progressive tax by putting it into the income tax. It'll be part of the income tax roll, just like other provinces in the country.
Thank you. Gary Holman?
Thanks for the question. The NDP will also roll MSP into the tax system to make it reflect progressivity, just like every other province in Canada. For the Liberals to cut a regressive tax in half that they just finished doubling over the past 15 years in a pre-election ploy to get you to vote for them, I mean, it's beyond stunning. And not just MSP. ICBC rates, hydro rates, ferry fares, tuition fees, the list goes on, but no, the Liberals don't raise taxes. It's nonsense. The primary question that the Liberals, and I did ask this in the CFAX debate, the $850 million in cuts, and then Stephen is saying, well, we're going to cut MSP premiums entirely. That's $2.5 billion. What services are you going to cut in order to make up for that revenue? This is 2001 all over again, where the Liberals cut taxes across the board by 25%, and you citizens, we have been paying for it ever since.
Thank you for all of your responses. The last question will begin with Jordan Templeman. Given that most British Columbians support the end of trophy hunting for grizzly bears and black bears in our province, please explain what you and your party will do to stop this unethical and unsustainable killing of all bears province-wide. You have 1 minute.
Well, when it comes to predators in our environment, such as grizzly bears or even wolves, I absolutely support the protection of them when it comes to our environment because they play a crucial role in our ecosystems. If we look at Yellowstone Park in the States, we saw that when the wolves were taken out, the entire ecosystem collapsed. The herbivore populations grew and they ended up destroying the vegetation there, and erosion completely destroyed Yellowstone Park. They reintroduced the wolves, and they found that the populations of deer and whatnot went down, and the entire ecosystem was better for it. So when it comes to predators and carnivores, we need to protect them because they're an essential part of our ecosystem. If they're not protected, then we're not protecting our ecosystems. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam Olson, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I will definitely be working very, very hard as an MLA to legislate an end to this disgusting practice. If you're wondering if big donations influence political parties, look no further than this one. The BC Liberals have been taking money from the big game hunters, the people who've been bringing foreigners into our country to shoot grizzly bears, and they have been stubborn on this issue in protecting those donors. And this is a prime example of that. Andrew Weaver's been strong on this issue around grizzly bears. He's tried to find ways to take steps because the BC Liberals were stubborn in not accepting the full thing. That didn't work. It's time for this practice to end. It's time for us to shoot grizzly bears with cameras, because that is the highest value that we're going to get, not with guns.
Thank you. Gary Holman, you have 1 minute.
The BC NDP is committed to ending the guided trophy hunt in British Columbia. My understanding is that the Green position, and I know because Andrew Weaver presented private members' legislation during our term, is that the trophy hunt is still okay as long as the guide outfitters pack out the meat. That's my understanding of the Green position. Adam was completely right about the Liberal donations there. Absolutely no change from them on this issues. Let's remember, though, that First Nations have a constitutional and treaty rights to hunt for subsistence purposes, and we'll still allow subsistence hunting by First Nations and local residents, but we are going to restore the capacity of the Ministry of Environment to ensure that grizzly populations in all areas of British Columbia are sustainable, but we will end the guided trophy hunt.
Thank you. Stephen Roberts, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. It sounds like that either end of the table, there's still going to be some grizzly bears in danger, unfortunately. My position, of course, I'm not a hunter. I don't want to go out and kill animals. I don't want to shoot them. It's not something that 90% of British Columbians want to do either. And I think without exceptions, as your MLA, I would be arguing that we end the grizzly hunt altogether.
Thank you all for your amazing responses to the questions. We're now going to begin with Adam Olson for your closing statements. You have 3 minutes.
I do not support grizzly bears being shot. My name's Adam Olson. I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening. It's great to be home here on the stage at Stellies. It's great to be in the community that I grew up in central Saanich, in Anich, right next to Wthathlip, where I grew up. The BC Greens are good for democracy. We've proven that. One member in the legislature over the past 4 years has driven the discussion and pushed the discussion a lot further than it would have gone without the Greens in the legislature. We need more Greens in the legislature because the climate action plans that are being put forward by the other parties are simply not good enough. And we need to have members in the legislature that are going to push it forward so that we have a place that our children can inherit. We've heard a couple of times, and we'll continue to hear it, I'm sure, that voting for the NDP is the only way to get electoral reform. No, it's not, because I support electoral reform too. And if I'm an MLA and the NDP's there, I'll be working with them. I'll be working with them to bring electoral reform in. That will be one of the conditions of working alongside an NDP caucus. We have a responsibility to our home. And that's the reason why I am putting my name forward and sitting in this table. Because I want to take responsibility for the home. I want to live the words of my late grandmother, to take responsibility for Anich. This is a very important place for all of us. It's a beautiful place. It's the place that we call home. There's growing momentum for the BC Greens. We have been leading the polls now for 3 weeks in a row. We've been holding. People thought it was a blip. It's not a blip. People want change. They want real change. They want change that they can count on. And unfortunately, what we have seen is change for the better, but better than the worst, as Andrew says, is still not good enough. We need to push the limits here. We need to go all the way. Half measures, third measures are not good enough in our time. Our world is changing. Our children deserve to have people who are going to stand up and make remarkable change. People who are going to embrace the opportunity of the 21st century, and that's what I'm inviting you to do in this election. Embrace the opportunity for change that you can count on. My name is Adam Olson. My Coast Salish name is Sahunap. I was born and raised in this community. I'm seeking your trust. And I'm asking you to put your vote, because it's your vote, in my care for the next 4 years. Heichka, thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Moving to Gary Holman now.
Well, thanks again to the Central Saanich Community Association, Stelly School, to my colleagues here, and to all of you for coming. It's been an honor to be your MLA for the past 4 years. I've worked very hard to live up to my campaign promises. I've worked very hard to be an advocate for this community. And whether or not there's a Liberal government or an NDP government, I'm going to continue to do that. And I've demonstrated, I've walked the talk, the Bayside School the Bayside School roof, the leaking roof, Grace Islet. Worked with Adam on that. I'm quite happy to work across partisan lines. Affordable housing, public transit, fighting urban sprawl in this very special place. I'm the only one that's been speaking out about these issues. So in terms of a MLA being an advocate, I think I've walked the talk. But you folks have to consider here the past 16 years. Does this Liberal government deserve another chance, another 4 years? And I think if you look at their record, and we've talked about the court-ordered school spending that they've been forced to do, and now characterizing it as a tremendous opportunity to invest in education, I think you really have to consider whether the Liberal government has a mandate to government. I believe they do not. And changing government is so important in this province. We have to change the channel. It's not just about individual advocacy. That's important. It's not just about one or two other Green MLAs in the legislature. I'll be advocating there. I've demonstrated that. I walk the walk. But we need to change the channel. We need to stop the increasing costs in this province, huge increases in regressive fees. We need to restore services that have been cut. We need to create sustainable jobs, protect our environment. Restore the authority of the BC Utilities Commission over BC Hydro, which is now awash in debt because the Liberal government has precluded Site C, independent power projects, smart meters, all of those investments that are costing you, as ratepayers, dollars each and every day because they refused to refer those projects to the Utilities Commission. It's vitally important that we change government. And only by electing a BC NDP can we actually change the voting system in this province. We're not going to do that by electing another one or two lone voices in the wilderness. You are only going to do that if we change government in British Columbia. And have we mentioned big money? I think we have mentioned big money, folks. And we are committed to banning political donations from corporations and unions. This Liberal Party is awash in money. The Premier of the province, the most powerful political figure in this province, received $300,000 from the Liberal Party, for which she is chief fundraiser. We need to change that, folks, and the only way to do that is to re-elect me as MLA and form an NDP government.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Now moving to Stephen Roberts.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you for being here tonight. Thank you, Stelly students. Thank you, people from the Residents Association. It's great to be with you and to see so many people engaged in our democracy and listening to what the candidates have to say. I'm running to be your BC Liberal representative so that we can have a strong voice in a successful BC Liberal government that's looking forward. We've got an enviable position in British Columbia. We have the lowest unemployment in the country, the highest job creation, the lowest taxes for middle-class families. We've got economic opportunity here so that people can get a great education, raise their families, buy a home, and live here in British Columbia. Nowhere else in Canada is enjoying the same economic situation as we are. We have a AAA credit rating, which may sound somewhat academic, but that means that we're actually able to borrow for infrastructure and future investment at a rate lower than anywhere else in the country. It's the best rating you can have. That allows us to make infrastructure investments in new schools, and there have been a lot, investments in new hospitals and in healthcare. We have a capital budget for hospital building of $2.7 billion over the next 3 years. When the NDP was in power in the 1990s, they didn't build a single hospital, not one. We have a plan to raise the number of physicians that we train in this province from 100 in 2001 to 228 now to 400 in the next 2 years. We're also doubling the number of nurses we're training and midwives. Those investments come about from a strong economy, something we've all worked hard on the last 15, 16 years. It's not time to throw that away. We've created 185 parks across the province. We've established a world-leading revenue-neutral carbon tax. We've added 90,000 hectares to the agricultural land reserve. It's not time to throw away those achievements. It's time to look forward, to invest in the industries of the future like technology, where we now employ more people than in mining and forestry combined. Technology is leading this province forward. That's one of the reasons why we're not suffering as a result of a resource drop in prices. Technology is employing more and more people in British Columbia. It's the clean, forward-looking jobs of the future that we want to invest in. That's why we're training our children in schools to learn how to code. That's why we're investing in a trade center at Camosun. We're investing in a new medical sciences center at Camosun. Those things cost money, and you have to prioritize. And the BC Liberal government, over the last 15 years, has made sure that we have an economy that is solid, that's going to continue to grow, and that's going to continue to provide for the families of British Columbia. That's why I want to be your next MLA, to make sure that those resources and those benefits are shared equally and that they come to this part of the province as well as to the far north, where we still got work to do. There's always more to do. There's always more work to do. There's always more we can spend on healthcare. But without a robust economy, we're not going to be able to do that, and that's critically important. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen Roberts. And Jordan Templeman, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you all again for coming out tonight. This is an amazing opportunity for us as candidates to share with you what our plans are for BC and for our district. Tonight, I want to ask you to consider voting independent. And the reason is this. In most representatives' career, there will come a time when he or she is given a hard choice, and that is to decide between a decision that will benefit their constituents and those who put them there, or it will benefit the party that they serve in. I don't have that conflict because I don't have a party to serve. All I serve is you. I serve you and the other constituents of this riding. When it comes to these close choices that representatives have to make along party lines, I will always choose in favor of our district. Right now, we see increases in tanker traffic in transporting heavy oil, as I was saying earlier, that sinks. We see our two main parties taking massive donations from unions and corporations instead of directly from voters, begging the question of who they actually represent. Does it seem like you are being represented? That's my question I ask you tonight. Does it seem like you are being represented in this government? As an independent, any vote that I receive is a vote for you, is a vote for the constituents. So on May 9th, I ask you to stop leaving your influence in the hands of those who are being influenced by others. Please vote independent, vote for me, and vote for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all of your closing statements, and we will have a short closing statement from Jess in a minute, but I'd just like to remind everyone that I'm sure your family and your children and everyone will be more than happy to see you come home with food. So if you want to head to the concession afterwards, it's out this way, and go buy something, please.
Yes, for a good cause. Just want to not take any more of your time this evening, but just to have a final round of applause for our candidates. Thanks for your stamina. I'd also like to thank all of the student and community volunteers and Stellies for being instrumental in putting on this event. Thank you. And one final word of encouragement, just to invite you to join the discussion. Central Saanich Community Association continues to meet monthly. We'd love to engage with you and to hear from you and to talk with you. So please join us. And with that, I think we can conclude. Thank you very much, and happy voting.